The purpose of this video is to go over how to use the Excel version of the line optimization and poll worker management tool that was developed by Stephen Graves and Rong Yuan. If you haven't watched the companion video to this one, which reviews how to use this tool in its simpler web-based version, I would encourage you to view it first and then come back to this one. The other video reviews data elements that we won't cover in detail here. To get the Excel version of the tool, we first have to download it from this web page. You'll notice that in the lower left-hand side of the page, there is a button that says Download Excel Macro. Just click on that button to download the spreadsheet from the website. By the way, I'm using an Apple computer for this demonstration. Things might look slightly different on a Windows machine. Once the spreadsheet has been downloaded, there's a little box in the bottom of the window. When I click on that box, the spreadsheet version of the tool is opened. Now, when you bring up the spreadsheet version of the tool, you're likely to get a couple of error messages warning you that you're going to be using a spreadsheet that's coming off the internet and that it has macros. When you encounter these messages, you should enable the macros so that you can run the simulation. You'll notice that the spreadsheet version of the resource allocation tool is very similar to the web version of the tool. It's divided into two major regions, one for inputting data and the other for outputting results. All of the input and output columns appear on the simpler web version of the tool. You'll also notice that the spreadsheet is set up by default to analyze 10 precincts, but we can change the number of precincts to be up to 1,000. If we look at the far left of the spreadsheet, we'll see there's a place where we can change the number of precincts we'll be analyzing. The green box on the left reads, Enter number of precincts. Next to that is a red-colored number, 10 by default. The example I'm going to run involves 24 precincts. So let me just type the number 24 in the box, and then hit the Enter key on the keyboard. We see that now the spreadsheet has room for 24 precincts. The most basic information we need to enter is the number of voters we expect to arrive per hour. Let me show you how we can enter that data by cutting and pasting from another Excel spreadsheet that has the data we want analyzed. I've switched over to another spreadsheet that has actual data from 24 precincts in a city. The spreadsheet shows the turnout in each precinct from a recent election. We'll use this historical turnout data to estimate turnout in the next election. You'll recall that the resource calculator requires that we enter expected turnout in terms of the hourly average. For the city we're looking at, polls were open for 13 hours on election day, so we'll need to divide turnout by 13 to get the average. You'll see that I've already used Excel to calculate for me the average hourly arrival rate, which is in the column labeled Arrival Rate. I need to copy the hourly arrival rate from this spreadsheet back to the resource allocation tool. Let's see how to do that. I'll first of all use the mouse to highlight the data I want to copy over to the tool. I then right-click on the mouse to call up the menu. I click on Copy, and then switch back to the tool. I then go to the very first cell under the arrival rate column. I right-click on the mouse and find the option that says Paste Special. I then click on the menu option that says Values, and the numbers are put into the column where they belong. So the hourly arrival rate has now been copied into the spreadsheet version of the tool. I just need to enter in the other information. The average time to check in, which is entered in the column labeled Average Time to Vote, the number of check-in stations, which is entered in the column labeled Current Number of Voting Stations, the maximum wait target, and the service level. In this case, I want to keep the example simple, so I will assume that it takes the same amount of time, on average, to check in at each precinct. Let's say I've done some research and found that the average time to check in to vote in this city is 40 seconds. Which is 2/3 of a minute, or 0.67 minutes in decimal terms. I'll type 0.67 into the first box for check-in times. I'll then go over to the next box and allocate one check-in station to precinct number 1. I'll set our maximum wait time target to 30 minutes and set the service level to 95%. I now want to take these numbers that I've typed in for precinct 1 and apply them to all the other precincts. To do that, I will use the mouse to highlight all the data I want to copy down below, right-click on the mouse, and click Copy on the menu. I then use the mouse to highlight the entire range where I want to fill in the data. I'll right-click again. I then click the regular Paste option, and there, all the data have been entered. Now we can calculate the results for all the precincts. To do that, I go over to the right-hand side of the spreadsheet to the red Calculate button. I click on it, and output is calculated for all the precincts. You'll notice that 4 of the precincts have an error message reading Unstable in the error message column. We'll leave those precincts aside for the moment. For all the other 20 precincts, you will see that average wait times have been calculated. These average wait times range from under half a minute in precincts 11 and 12, all the way up to 9.5 minutes for precinct 13. Now, let's focus for a minute on the 4 precincts that have the unstable label next to them, precincts 1, 2, 3, and 20. There is an explanation for this error message in the text box on the right-hand side of the spreadsheet. The text states that the message unstable means that the number of people that arrive exceeds the number of people that the system can handle. In other words, if we only allocate one check-in station to each of these 4 precincts, the poll workers won't be able to keep up with check-ins. The lines to check in will just keep growing throughout the day, only stopping when the polls closed in the evening. There are only 3 ways the results from these 4 precincts can be stabilized. We can reduce the number of voters arriving, speed up the check-in process, or allocate more poll books for check-in. For now, let's focus on what happens if we add one more check-in station to handle the estimated demand at these 4 precincts. I go back over to the input section for these 4 precincts and just type in the number 2 under the number of check-in stations. After I have done this, I click Calculate again, and we see that all of the error messages have disappeared. All the precincts now are stable. And we know which precincts can handle the job with just 1 poll book and which will need 2.